afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome from my side. My name is Róbert Ésik. I'm the president of HIPA, which is the Hungarian Investment Promotion Agency. We are basically responsible for foreign direct investment in Hungary. And I will be sharing the stage with my colleague, Dániel, who will come up after me. And he is the deputy CEO of the Budapest Stock Exchange. So what we would like to talk to you about is, first of all, Hungary as an investment location. And I would like to tell you the story how Hungary has become rather part of the solution instead of being part of the problem as far as the European economy is concerned. And then Dániel will elaborate on the investment opportunities and the excellent investment opportunities that the Budapest Stock Exchange presents to you. So please allow me to start with an overview of Hungary. And as you know, Hungary is a relatively small-sized country, so we have 10 million people in total. We are located in the middle of Europe. As you can see from the map, we have the advantage of having the great Hungarian plain, which is not just good for agricultural reasons, but also for industrial purposes as well. We have our own local currency, which is the Hungarian forint, and I will come to this at a later stage as well. So where do we stand as of today? Well, I'm happy to be able to say that the Hungarian economy is a very stable and growing economy. And if you look at the latest growth rate figures, actually it was 4.8% adjusted by seasonality as of Q4 last year, which put Hungary on the second position in the overall European economy. Now, coupled with the growth, we also have stability. We are classified as investment grade by all three major credit rating agencies, some of them already giving a positive outlook. We have our own local currency, which is the Hungarian forint, which is a strategic decision from our side to have it this way. Reason for that being that we believe that for the investors that come to Hungary to carry out manufacturing activities and then would export their goods and services to the outside world, see this as a benefit because on the one hand side we have a stable currency. So if you compare the volatility of the euro versus the US dollar or the pound versus the euro, you would find out that actually the volatility of the forint versus the euro is much lower. In the same time, though, it gives a certain competitive advantage because there is a steady devaluation of our currency versus the euro, for example. So when I was saying that we are now rather part of the solution than being part of a problem, that is due to the figures that you see on this chart. But actually, if you look back in 2010, Hungary was in a much worse situation than today. Not too many people remember, luckily, that actually Hungary filed for IMF assistance even prior to Greece. And we had a budget deficit which was over 7%. We had an unemployment which was more than 12%. Now, how did we get from that situation in 2010 to where we are today in the beginning of 2018? I would like to show you some key elements of the economic policy that we have been carrying out and also give you an outlook on the future, how we'd like to move to the next step. So number one, what we have said is, we said, we would like to encourage people to work and we would like to create as many jobs as possible. If you remember, I said we are a country of 10 million people. Now imagine that instead of having 3.7 million people at work and paying taxes, we have, as of today, 4.45 million people at work and paying taxes. Now, what were some of the incentives and what were some of the encouragements from the government side to move into this direction? On the one hand side, we have introduced a flat tax on personal income, which is 15% now in Hungary, which is one of the lowest in the European Union. So if somebody earns twice as much, then the person pays twice as much tax, but not progressively. On the other hand side, we have limited the unemployment aid period to 3 months. And after 3 months, if somebody still doesn't find a job, then the state offers a public employment, which can be maybe work at municipalities, administrative work, or maybe cleaning the street or the forest. And if you accept the public job, then you get a salary for that, which is higher than the unemployment aid. but lower than the wage you can get on the market. But if you don't accept, then you're out of the social system. So that's basically another type of encouragement for people to work. We have also revised and deleted most of the early pension schemes and lots of other measures which were encouraging people to potentially find jobs on the job market. Result is that, of course, there's much more income in the state budget and there is much more stability in terms of the economy. Next point is that we also said that we need to have a very competitive tax system, and I was already touching base on the personal income tax situation, but we have decided to make some bold moves also on the corporate income tax side. So as of today in Hungary, there is a 9% flat corporate income tax, which is again the lowest in the whole European Union. So independent of the size of the company, whether it's a small, a mid-size, or a large enterprise, this is the tax rate that you will have to pay. So the additional income that was collected from the employment on the income side from the budget was reinvested to make tax cuts. So that's one important thing I would like to take with you. The other important element is that the whole philosophy of the tax system is to try to reduce the tax burden on labor as much as possible. And instead of having tax burden on labor, we have, of course, tax on consumption. Now, in terms of reducing the tax burden on labor, I have mentioned the personal income tax. The other important element is what type of taxes do the employers have to pay on top of the wages. So this is what we call a social contribution tax. So on top of the gross wages, this is what employers actually pay after their employees. Now, what we have done here is that we have reduced it already in 2 steps from 27 to 19.5% as of January of this year. And in the framework of a 6-year plan, which was an agreement between the employers and the employee representatives, we plan to make further cuts. The next element is what I am describing here as re-establishing Hungary as a manufacturing hub of Europe. What's the reason behind? What's the rationale behind? One of the main conclusions we have learned from the financial crisis in 2008 and 2009 was that the economies that have a stronger manufacturing and industrial background are much more resilient to the crisis than the ones which are solely dependent on the services industry. That's why we have been carrying out, especially in the last 8 years, a strategy which was about strengthening the industrial presence as much as possible. So you can see here on this chart some of the examples of the made in Hungary products. For example, Audi, which is the largest foreign investor with 8.7 billion euros of investment, having the largest engine manufacturing. So I was talking about the industrial footprint in Hungary and what kind of emphasis we have put on this one. Moving on to the next point is that we also decided to have a foreign policy which is focusing on the external economic relations of Hungary. What's the reason for that? Hungary is one of the most open economies of the world, which means that the export over GDP ratio is close to 100%. If you have an economy with such a structure, then the only way to be successful is to be successful in 2 things. On the one hand side, to continuously attract investment. On the other hand side, to try to help your mid-sized enterprises so that they can get access to export markets. That's why we have been deciding in favor of a foreign trade-focused foreign policy, and that's why we have a special emphasis on foreign direct investment. So when we talk to potential investors, for example, within a period of 3 weeks, we are able to come back with an offer from the Hungarian state side, what type of cash or tax incentives we can put aside to investment opportunities. So based on these measures, what we have been able to achieve in the recent years is to be high up in the rankings when it comes to foreign direct investment. Just want to give you a couple of examples. So Hungary was ranked number 5 in the world based on high value-add FDI job creation. This is a survey which was published at the end of 2017. And also we have been ranked 15 in the world when it comes to the absolute number of jobs created via foreign direct investment. And if you look at the chart here, we are measured together with the small economies like US or India or China. So I think number 15 for a country with the size of Hungary is a very nice result. And again, just to give you some of the examples of the major foreign direct investors that have selected Hungary recently, this is a landscape, and you can see that both from the manufacturing and the services industry, we have very good references. And I think one important consequence this has, and Dániel will talk about it, is that those Hungarian enterprises who are in the mid-size category have opportunities to become suppliers of these large corporations. And actually, two of the exhibitors that the Budapest Stock Exchange has here today with us are also companies that are actively providing services to one of the major FDI investors. Now, moving ahead, what can be the next step from an economic policy point of view? We are today now in a situation that we have an unemployment rate of 3.8%. We have the GDP growth over 4%. So clearly there is an opportunity to try to move up the value chain and try to increasingly focus on invented in Hungary type of projects in parallel to the made in Hungary type of businesses. What it means essentially for us is that we will try to incentivize those manufacturing activities which represent the latest technologies, Industry 4.0, digitalization, coupled with those projects which are exclusively focusing on innovation and R&D. We have, of course, several state-run programs which are supporting that, whether it's the industrialization program or the e-mobility plan or the Digital Hungary program. But I just wanted to show you now two examples of schemes that we have for investors which are actually expanding their capacities in these two aspects. On the one hand side, we have cash subsidies available for companies that are scaling up R&D type of activities in Hungary. This can be subsidized both in the capital city and on the countryside. On the other hand side, we have also schemes available for companies which are aiming to upgrade their technology, not necessarily committing to additional jobs, but committing to bringing the latest technology to the country and thus increasing productivity. So these are some of the tools and examples that we are trying to leverage on when it comes to the future. And with this, I would like to close my part of the presentation, and we'll now hand over to Dániel, who will talk to you about what it means in terms of investment opportunities when it comes to the Budapest Stock Exchange. Thank you very much for your attention.
Good afternoon, everyone. So Hungary is not a winter sports kingdom. Our biggest mountain is actually 3,000 feet high. It barely snows in Hungary. And our Winter Olympics team is actually very small, and nobody has ever paid attention to them. But this was just until this February, when the speed skating team of Hungary won its first gold medal in the speed skating's 5-kilometer relay race. I see this as a true turnaround story for this team. For Hungary, in the 93 years, we have never won such award in the Winter Games. And also this means that in the history of the Winter Games, we never have won such an award. It's a bit even similar to the Jamaican bobsleigh team when they were competing in the Calgary Games. Hard work, persistence, and efforts finally paying off for them. My name is Dániel Körmöczi, and I see a similarity when I look at this performance and the performance of the Hungarian economy. So after the financial crisis, Hungary was in a particularly bad situation. It's true for everyone, for every country, that after the crisis it was difficult. But for Hungary, as a small emerging economy, this was especially the case. We were highly indebted. Our currency, the Hungarian forint, was fluctuating heavily. Unemployment was high. And as a consequence of these, our capital markets suffered badly as well. Nobody has really invested on the stock exchange. Valuations were bottoming, and liquidity was low as well. However, after 2015, the government's crisis management policy started to help and kick off the economy. And this, along with the global recovery, which took place as well, by now we can say that our economy is a much more stable and reliable economy. EU funds are fueling the growth, and our currency no longer fluctuates. It is within a maximum of 2% range, moving up or downwards, being fairly stable. So in the next few minutes, I would like to tell you about the past years, how our market performed, what you may have missed out, actually, if you haven't traded Hungary. Also, I would like to show you how our market works and how our market functions, because it's actually very similar to yours here in the UK. And thirdly, I would like to talk about the opportunities on our market and the companies who joined us. You can see here on this chart that the Budapest Stock Exchange index, the BUX, outperformed significantly both the emerging markets MSCI index, but also the FTSE 250 index. In 2015, Hungary was even among the best markets globally in the top 3 best performing stock exchanges. And moving on now, how our market works and functions. Other than having our own currency, the Hungarian forint, our markets are very similar to any European market, basically. We have the Xetra trading infrastructure where our market works. This is the same as the one used by Frankfurt and Dublin. We are settling between the securities account on a T+2 basis, just like it is in any major European market and many other markets. We have trading from 9 till 5, typical. And we are regulated also by the MiFID II regulatory environment. Also, it's worth to note that foreign investors, just like you here in the room, dominate our market. If I look at our turnover of the stock exchange, half of our volumes are coming from investors from the United States, Europe, or Asia. And also, you can see these with the blue color marks, the foreign investors. And also in terms of ownership structure, it's even stronger that 2/3 of Hungarian shares are actually owned by foreign investors already. And this is to show you, look how our volumes grew in the past years since 2014. So the market and typically the demand for our stock exchange is picking up. And this doesn't even show this year's 2018 figures, which is even stronger, and our volumes grew further. And I've been working for Budapest Stock Exchange for a bit more than 2 years, but before that I was working for a Belgian stockbroker, KBC. And back then, some years ago, I really do remember those days when it was the crisis times and we were looking at our screens at the office and volumes were low, volatility and liquidity was not there at all. And when we looked around our other players, we saw that they were either scaling down their businesses in Central Eastern Europe or shutting down. And I must say it feels great to see these growing volumes and finally business picking up and banks and brokerage companies entering the market and looking for new opportunities. But let's look a bit into the future, what kind of opportunities there are. Because if you look at the price per earnings ratios, you can still see that the BUX is still some 20% below in terms of PE compared to emerging markets, and about 50%, close to 50% to FTSE 250. And this is actually coupled with a dividend yield which is comparable to our peers of emerging markets and major markets. So this shows me that on the one hand there is a growth story for investment, but on the other hand there is competitive dividend yields as well. And let me also tell you a bit about our companies, what kind of companies we have on our market. We have altogether 37 different companies, and half of them are on our prime market. This prime market is actually pretty much the same as London Stock Exchange prime market, same characteristics. Industry-wise, we are very well represented. We have oil and gas, banking, pharmaceuticals, technology, transportation, real estate. So all the different industries are represented on our market. And we have 4 blue chip companies to highlight for you. They are the most liquid shares on our market. MOL is an oil and gas company. They are focused on not only on traditional oil and gas activity, but they also have a strategy to diversify from these businesses. So they are quite investing heavily in petrochemistry, but also retail services. For example, just a few weeks ago, they launched the car sharing service in Budapest, which is quite popular. OTP, they are the biggest bank in Hungary. And they are a Central Eastern European player. They are present all over our region. And they have significant further M&A potential to look at. Richter, they are a pharmaceutical company. They are a true R&D powerhouse. And they have a global distribution network in the Americas, Asia, and Europe as well. And finally, Magyar Telekom, they are a telecommunications provider. They are the leading player in Hungary. And they offer various new technological products to their customers in telecommunication. And saving the best part for the last, let me also tell you a bit about the companies who joined us to this conference. And going back a bit to speed skating or sports, I mean, typically we pick a sport like football or basketball. So when somebody picks speed skating, it's really a special sport. And in the energy business also, typically energy companies focus on oil and gas, traditional exploitation. So Alteo, our first company's special pick is actually Smart Energy, because they are an energy power generator provider in natural gas and also electricity. They are also an energy trader company, and they have various services related to energy to B2B customers. Their top-tier clients include BMW, Audi, Heineken, and Lego as well. Our second company is a real estate company, Duna House. And also just jumping for a sentence to speed skating, when you are speeding really at 30 miles per hour as a speed skater, you really have to make the right decisions. And Duna House did quite many of such moves, becoming a leading real estate provider, and by now also a regional player, having offices not only in Budapest, but also in Prague and Poland as well. They have quite diversified businesses. They not only do real estate brokerage, and they also do related financial loan brokerage, but they also successfully run an investment fund focusing on real estate business, and they also have real estate development projects. Our third company is Waberers, and again, the last sentence about speed skating in this context is that it is very important in this sport that you get from A to B the fastest possible way safely. And they are a transportation company doing exactly that. They are a market leader in the full truckload business, and their plan is to consolidate this business further in Europe. They became famous by acquiring a Polish company, Link, last year. And you may even see their trucks on the highways and roads here in the UK. Also, just to highlight you, I would like to show you, these are the brokerage companies who are covering Hungary, because not every brokerage company is trading in Hungary, but these names definitely do. You can see some international or global names like Interactive Brokers or the Giro, but also some UK ones, Pilink, Novum Securities, or JM Fin. So I started a historical moment, how our speed skaters won the gold medal. Let's see what was the next moment. So the Hungarian speed skater has a British girlfriend. So if you want to see how you can benefit from UK-Hungary relations, do not hesitate to see our booths and also follow our market. Thank you very much.